Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a fresh look at someone you probably think you know, Adolf Eichmann. And specifically, that very famous idea he inspired, Hannah Arendt's banality of evil.
Right. For decades, the picture's been pretty clear, hasn't it? Eichmann as this, well, faceless bureaucrat, just shuffling papers, following orders, maybe not even thinking too hard about the horror he was enabling.
Exactly. The idea that evil could be mundane, boring even, that it didn't require monstrous intent, just thoughtlessness. A chilling concept that really resonated.
It really did. Arendt saw him at the trial in Jerusalem, and she portrayed him as shallow, almost incapable of real moral thought. His evil wasn't about passion, but about obedience, about being ordinary within a monstrous system.
And that view shaped so much of how we understand these things. But here's the question we're digging into today, the really provocative part. What if Eichmann, the very symbol of this banal evil, was actually pulling off an incredible deception?
What if he consciously crafted that persona?
Yeah. What if Hannah Arendt, in developing this hugely influential idea, was actually Eichmann's unwitting final victim, tricked by his performance?
That's exactly what we're going to unpack here. We're drawing heavily on some really groundbreaking work, primarily Bettina Stangneth's 2011 book, Eichmann Before Jerusalem.
Okay.
And this book is, well, it's a game changer because it brings to light all these documents, recordings even, stuff Arendt just never saw and never had access to.
Things from before the trial?
Precisely. And they paint a picture that fundamentally challenges this whole image of the obedient, thoughtless functionary.
So our mission today, let's explore this hidden Eichmann, the one revealed in these sources Stangneth uncovered. We want to understand his performance at the trial and what it really means.
Get ready, because the Eichmann we find here might be far more complex and frankly more terrifying than the one we thought we knew.
Okay, so let's just quickly reset the scene. The common understanding of Eichmann, the one most of us absorbed, really comes through Hannah Arendt's eyes, right?
Absolutely. Her reporting for The New Yorker on the Jerusalem trial, that's where the phrase banality of evil comes from. She saw this meticulous official, sort of dull, obsessed with rules, seemingly without personal hatred, just doing his job.
A cog in the machine. A symbol of how horrific things happen, not necessarily through demonic figures, but through ordinary people just, following the bureaucratic process without thinking.
And that picture, that powerful idea, is exactly what Bettina Stangneth's book, Eichmann Before Jerusalem, just completely turns on its head.
How so? What did she find?
Well, her research uncovered this incredible cache of material. Eichmann's own writings, personal tape recordings, transcripts of conversations he had between 1950 and 1961.
So this is all from his time in Argentina before he was captured.
Exactly, before Jerusalem. And the crucial thing, the absolutely vital point, is that in these materials, Eichmann sounds nothing like the man in the glass booth at the trial. He's boasting. He's justifying his actions, sometimes even, gloating. There's no hint of the reluctant follower.
Wow.
And you have to remember, Hannah Arendt, sitting in the gallery, even the prosecutor, 𝙀𝙞𝙘𝙝, who was incredibly thorough, they didn't have this stuff.
They didn't know about these recordings or writings?
Not in any real detail, no. They were working with an incomplete puzzle. They were judging the man based on the performance he gave in court, under threat of execution.
Which, as Stangneth shows, was a very calculated performance.
Absolutely. So what these hidden documents reveal is a profoundly different Eichmann. It's almost like Jekyll and Hyde, the meek bureaucrat in Jerusalem versus this unapologetic, hardcore ideologue speaking freely in Argentina.
Okay, this is fascinating. Let's talk about these recordings. You mentioned interviews.
Yes, this is central. The Sasson interviews. They were conducted by a man named Wilhelm Sasson. And Sasson, well, he's quite a figure himself.
Oh.
A German-Dutch journalist, but also a former Nazi propagandist.
Yeah.
An actual SS member. And get this, he was apparently a personal friend of Juan Perón, the dictator of Argentina at the time.
Okay, so not exactly an impartial observer. What was the context for these interviews?
Well, Sasson ran this outfit called the 𝙀𝙀𝙘𝙝 Publishing House. Its whole purpose basically was publishing Nazi apologetics, denying the Holocaust, that sort of thing. He even put out this bilingual pamphlet, The Path.
Right.
His specific goal, his agenda with Eichmann, was to refute what he called Jewish lies, appearing in an Argentine newspaper. That paper was publishing accounts of Nazi crimes, specifically citing the figure of 6 million Jewish victims.
Which Sasson and his group denied.
Vehemently. They were living in this echo chamber, dreaming of a Fourth Reich, thinking democracy in West Germany was just a phase. They clung to this bizarre idea that the total number of Nazi victims was like 135,000 max. just completely divorced from reality.
So why interview Eichmann then if they already had their truth?
Because, in their warped view, Eichmann was the leading expert on the subject. They thought he could help them definitively debunk the 6 million figure.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Exactly. What happened next was, well, utterly stunning for Sasson and his circle. They sit down with Eichmann, expecting him to back up their denial narrative.
And he confirms the 6 million.
Not only confirms it, he justifies everything he did without a shred of remorse.
He basically validated the very Jewish lies they were trying to fight. Imagine the absolute horror in that room among these Nazi sympathizers.
Incredible. He just laid it all out.
And the shockwaves went beyond Sasson. There's this amazing example Stangneth cites involving 𝙁𝙁𝙧𝙀𝗍𝙁 von 𝙁𝙀𝙀𝙁, another SS commander, a real anti-Semite.
Okay.
𝙁𝙁𝙧𝙀𝗍𝙁 heard about Eichmann's confessions from these interviews and was apparently disgusted. He called Eichmann's actions brutality unworthy of German chivalry. He said it would personally disgust him to attack defenseless people and to push them into gas chambers just because of their birth.
Wow. Even a fellow high-ranking Nazi found Eichmann's actions, or at least his bragging about them, repellent. What did Eichmann say to that?
That's the thing. He heard this condemnation directly from someone like 𝙁𝙁𝙧𝙀𝗍, and he just stayed silent. No defense, no justification, nothing. Just soaked it up.
What happened to Sasson after this? Did this project just collapse?
Completely. The association was a disaster for him. It didn't help rehabilitate Hitler, which maybe Perón wanted. After Perón fell in '55, Sasson shut down his publishing house, stopped the pamphlet.
Which suggests government funding, maybe?
It certainly looks that way, yeah. Stangneth argues that this whole horrible experience with Eichmann basically broke him as a writer. He reportedly just stopped, died years later in Germany, old and apparently an alcoholic.
A pretty grim end, and a testament to how repellent Eichmann's actual views were, even to his own side.
So this brings us back to Eichmann himself. Based on all this, Stangneth describes him as a pathological fabulator.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? Not just a liar, but something more.
Yeah, it's more than just telling lies for gain. It's this sort of compulsive need to invent a reality, to create false narratives about oneself, maybe even believing them to some extent. It's about manipulating your own history, your identity.
And Eichmann did this constantly.
Pervasively. Stangneth gives specific examples, like he claimed he was born in Sarono, which was a German colony near what's now Tel Aviv. Totally false.
Why claim that?
Maybe to seem connected to the Jewish problem from birth. Who knows? He also insisted he spoke fluent Hebrew and Yiddish.
Which he didn't.
Not at all. He was basically a monoglot. Spoke only what Stangneth calls proletarian German, this really convoluted, clumsy dialect, not the sophisticated official he pretended to be. His actual speech gave away his lack of real education.
Any other big fabrications?
Oh, yeah. He claimed he'd visited Palestine in the 1930s. He tried, but the British authorities actually denied him entry. He also bragged about being buddies with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, 𝙀𝙀𝙀𝙀 al-Husseini.
The pro-Nazi Palestinian leader?
That's the one. In reality, they met, shook hands maybe, but the Mufti was much closer to Himmler. Eichmann was just inflating his own importance again.
It's a pattern of self-aggrandizement built on lies. What about after the war in Argentina? Did he write things down?
He did, and Stangneth analyzes these writings. In his, let's say, clumsy prose, he wrote about the 1956 Sinai campaign.
Israel against Egypt.
Right. And Eichmann saw it as total confirmation of all his anti-Semitic beliefs. The aggressiveness, wickedness, perfidy of Jews, he wrote. Absolutely chilling stuff.
Still completely convinced of his worldview.
And worse, he expressed this, great admiration for Arabs, hoping they would, and this is horrifying, complete the final solution that he felt Germany had to abandon because they lost the war.
My God, so completely unrepentant, still dreaming of genocide.
Absolutely. Ideologically committed to the core.
And just to reiterate the crucial point.
None of this. None of these boastful confessions, these fabrications, these vile post-war fantasies. None of the real Eichmann revealed in Argentina was presented at the trial in Jerusalem.
Arendt didn't know, Hausner didn't know, the court didn't know.
They simply couldn't have known about these private writings and recordings.
Yeah.
They were dealing with the public performance, not the private monster.
Okay, so this is the crux of it then. How do we square these two Eichmanns? The bragging, ideologically driven monster in Argentina, revealed in Stangneth's work, versus the seemingly dull, obedient paper pusher in the glass booth in Jerusalem.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? And the answer seems to lie in why he adopted that specific persona for the trial.
What was the motivation?
According to Stangneth's analysis of the sources, his main concern was pretty simple. Save his skin, self-preservation. But also, importantly, he desperately wanted to avoid looking like the super criminal he was in front of his wife and children.
Ah, so image management, even then. He knew what kind of narrative would play better.
Exactly. He needed to minimize his agency, his personal responsibility, portray himself as just a small cog, bound by orders, maybe even a bit overwhelmed. Not the architect, not the enthusiast he clearly was in private. It was a carefully constructed defense.
And it was that performance, that carefully crafted character of the meticulous, obedient, thoughtless official.
That's the character that gave Arendt so much food for thought, as Stangneth puts it. That's what led directly to her concept of the banality of evil. She was analyzing the mask, not the man behind it.
So does this completely invalidate Arendt's idea then? Was she just wrong about the banality of evil?
Well, that's a really important nuance. I don't think it necessarily invalidates the concept itself. Maybe evil can sometimes be banal, stemming from thoughtlessness or bureaucracy. But it certainly reframes how we apply it to Eichmann.
Okay.
Arendt accurately described the phenomenon she observed in the courtroom, a man appearing surprisingly ordinary, lacking depth. Her observation of the performance was astute, given what she knew.
But the performance wasn't reality.
Exactly. What Stangneth reveals is that the banality Eichmann displayed wasn't who he was, it was a tactic. A deliberate, calculated piece of theater designed to deceive. It shows the danger of relying only on what you see in a courtroom setting.
So the banality wasn't his nature, it was his strategy. I wasn't just a cog. He pretended to be a cog, which, you could argue, makes him even more sinister.
I think it does. It moves banality from being like a passive lack of thought to an active manipulative tool. This wasn't a thoughtless man. This was a darkly calculating one. He understood exactly how to present himself to minimize his culpability.
So the evil wasn't banal at all.
Not his, no. As these hidden sources show, his evil was deeply ideological, it was proud, it was remorseless, and it was incredibly cunning. He used his skill as a pathological fabulator to try and save himself and shape his legacy. And in Hannah Arendt, he found the perfect, albeit unwitting, vehicle to broadcast a completely misleading idea about himself to the world. She became, in a way, his final victim.
So let's wrap this up. We've journeyed from the familiar image of Eichmann as the embodiment of banal evil
To this hidden reality uncovered by Stangneth. Eichmann as a calculating, unrepentant ideologue, a master manipulator who deliberately crafted that banal persona for his trial.
The dull bureaucrat was a mask. The reality was far darker, driven by fervent belief and a complete lack of remorse, even pride in his actions.
And understanding this, it really forces us to reconsider things, doesn't it? How does our perception of evil shift when we realize that even apparent banality can be a performance, a calculated deception?
It makes you question surface appearances.
Absolutely. It underscores how vital it is to dig deep, to find all the available sources, especially the hidden ones, before we form conclusions about historical figures and events. Courtroom testimony, public statements, they're often just part of the story, and sometimes a deliberately misleading part.
We have to look beyond the stage.
Precisely. We need to get backstage, into the private writings, the unguarded moments to get closer to the truth. It's a reminder that history is complex, and simple narratives can be deeply deceptive.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty unsettling thought to ponder. If Eichmann, a figure so central to understanding the Holocaust and 20th century evil, could pull off such a successful, long-lasting deception about his own nature, who else might have done the same?
Right. What other historical figures have carefully managed their image, especially during trials or public scrutiny? What hidden documents, what secret recordings might still be out there, waiting to completely overturn our understanding of people we think we know?
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Always question the narrative, especially when it feels too neat, too simple. There might be a much more complicated and often much more disturbing truth waiting to be discovered.